Infamous in column 1 and Rowan Run. All right, I'll call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the consent agenda. Recommended action is approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. 4A minutes, 5A teaching assistant maternity leave extension request, 5B teaching staff maternity leave extension request, 5C additional winter coach and volunteers, 6A external audit report approval, and 6B special education. I have a motion.
Yes.
John, thank you.
Second.
Martha, thank you. Would anybody like to?
Can we pull out the external audit?
We absolutely can.
I thought about that as she was reading it.
Good eye there.
Yeah.
Did something before he switched for.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good. I heard it all.
Very well.
That's right. Yeah.
Second time around.
Okay, so do we need to, get that pulled out? Okay, so if everybody will vote.
That was somebody. Five yes.
All right, so it passes, 6A being pulled out. Okay, information for the public. This is the new section. So you'll see there's some explanations in there, some various things that have been brought up in the public comment section. And we'll be doing this as we go forward, just as a response, probably in the next board meeting after a member of the public brings something up during that portion, or within the next two, I would say, just in case it's something that includes a deeper dive or some investigation. But we'll try to put forth any information there. And of course, if anybody needs more information, they're free to either contact the district office or come to a board meeting and ask us more questions or statements. So I'll just point that out for the good of the public there, and they can look at that in the agenda. That brings us up to the public comment portion. Do we have any emails?
I don't think so.
Okay. So trucking right along here to 3A external audit report. Tom, hello.
Hi. Okay.
Take it away.
Take it away. Okay, good. Hello, everyone. So let's start with the financial statement. That's the biggest booklet. And just go right to page 1. And I'll kind of walk you through this. I give you highlights and try to be concise. So on page 1, if you look at the bold headings, you see the very first one is opinions. So that's our audit opinion. And go to the second paragraph. And we state, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Lake Placid Central School District as of June 30th, 2022. So that's a clean opinion. So that's good. I would then have you go down to the responsibilities for management for the financial statements. That's the second from the bottom paragraph. Management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of system of internal control. If you go to the next page, we state what the auditor's responsibilities are right at the top, very first paragraph. And auditors responsibility are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from a material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. It also says a reasonable assurance is a high level of insurance, but it's not absolute assurance, and therefore it's not a guarantee that an audit will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. I'll digress here for a second, as I did with the audit committee. The AICPA, the monitors auditors, has been putting emphasis through. We go through a peer review every 3 years, and they're looking to separate the responsibilities of management from the auditor's responsibilities to assure that the auditors are independent. And so what we're finding is that we're for smaller organizations, as opposed to like major corporations, we are often helpful in doing journal entries in an audit, and peer review is trying to push us further apart from taking on management type responsibilities. So we bring that to your attention, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But well, here I'll just finish that off. We did state that in our letter to the governing board that and we're doing this in many instances, that we're preparing significant journal entries during the audit. And you certainly have the talent to do it yourself. So we're stating that maybe there's a lot of information that needs to be pulled together before the audit, ERS, actuarial tables, and TRS actual tables. So the time needed to gather these documents and then do your adjustments. We're just saying that you might need to give your team a little more time to gather the documents before we start the audit. Okay, I won't belabor that. You certainly have a good team. So I would then take you to page 15 of the financial statements. And here, this is what happened during the year. So this is like if you go to the very far column of their total governmental funds, go a little more than halfway down, you see that you have an excess of revenues that came in over your expenditures of $1,757,000. That's very positive. Go right down to the bottom line on that column. You see that you have a fund balance of $9,515,000. That is, that's good, or that's healthy. If you go over to page 13, go over to the very far right-hand column, second line up from the bottom, you see there's the fund balance of $9,515,000. How you get there is that go about a third of the way down from the top. That's your total assets of $11,613,000. You can cast your eye up that column. You can see that most of that is cash, with some money that is due from state and federal aid. And then about halfway down, you see your total liabilities, $1,915,000. So you subtract your liabilities from the assets, and that's how you arrive at the fund balance of $9,515,000. Just go up, excuse me, one little line above that is the unassigned fund balance. That's $5,000,003,404. That number, I'm going to take you back to page 52. Your unassigned fund balance, there's a New York State real property tax law that says that the maximum allowed unassigned fund balance is 4% of what your next year's general fund balance is. That's about halfway down. That's a $20,911,000. 4% of that is 836,000. If you go down to the bottom, you see, you're at 5,003,000, so that's 23% of the next year's general fund balance. That is pretty typical. We probably do about 10 New York State school districts, and I think maybe one of them is under the 4%. But it needs to be pointed out that that is a matter. Okay, so then let me get back to. Let me get back to page 14. This, if you look at the very first column here, not the far column, that's the same balance sheet you were just looking at a little while ago. You look, second line from the bottom, there's the 9 million by 15, and your 11 million of total assets. Okay, that is on fund accounting basis. The very far column is you need to also report the accrual basis or net position. And if you stay at the second line from the bottom, your fund balance goes all the way down to a negative 43 million, 053. The second column is what is reconciling from the first to the last column, and about a third of the way down, you see you bring in your capital assets, net of depreciation, 27 million. And if you go about 2/3 of the way down, you also see that you bring in a lot of liabilities. You bring in the biggest number, most important number here is the 65,675,000 of other post-employment benefits. Also, there's your bond payable, 15 million. The unemployed other post-employment benefits is the main reason why you have that negative balance. Everybody has this too. It's an unfunded liability. This is health insurance for your current employees and retired employees. It's actuarially determined. So just to point that out. But you're definitely not unique. Everybody has that big liability. I will take just a few more seconds in this report and take you to page 48. It might be something that is, relevant. You've got budgeting coming up. If you look at the second from the bottom line, over on the far right column again, 616,000. What that is that your expenses, the middle column, were 20,088,000. They were 616,000 less than what you had budgeted. And if you look up at about almost halfway down, those are your revenues, and the number there is 436,000 is the difference. Your revenues were 436,000 more than what you had budgeted. You can see the budget is the second column, 20 million, and you had 21 million in actual revenue. And then there's, you can go through the pluses and minuses as to, how you have those variances. And I will maybe take you to do you have the single audit report? It's a smaller binder too. This report, it's sent through a data collection process, and Dana and I, we just got that completed today. It's been sent in. And so there are, the first page one, the first letter is a report on the school district's internal controls. And there's a lot of information in here, is like the definition of what a material weakness of internal controls is. But if you go down to the second to the bottom paragraph, you kind of have to pick it out of there, but it says, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. However, material weaknesses may exist and have not been identified. So that is good. We don't see any material weaknesses in your system. On the next page, that very top paragraph, that discloses the instance of noncompliance, the other matter, that is that's the 4% rule. And that's further back in here, but if you just stay with the page 3, this letter is a report on compliance with your federal programs. And so we need to look at your federal programs and see that you're in compliance with like allowable costs and the period of performance that you're using the funds. And there's a series, depending upon what your federal programs are, there's a series of compliance requirements we need to look at. And so we had no instances of non-compliance. So that's all good. And then I think I will take you to page 8. This gets sent in. That's there. You see at the bottom of the page, that's the section on findings. That's that other matter. And I'm belaboring that issue. And then page 6 is a listing of all of your federal funds that you expended. So I think I'll just kind of back off here a minute and see if there's any questions or any direction you wanted to go. And I do also want to state that we totally appreciate working with your group, Dana and Betsy and everybody who's there. It's a terrific organization to work with and very helpful. And so thank you for that.
Great, thank you. What questions do we have? Martha?
Nope.
Nothing?
There's just so much information. Yeah.
Yeah, so I we had just discussed this in the committee meeting, but the overall health of the financial systems, checks and balances that we have in place are good. Is the thing we need to figure out how to deal with our unrestricted fund balance in a responsible way. That also puts us in a good. It's good, it's good for the taxpayer, but also safeguards the school for all future possibilities of catastrophe and whatever else that may happen. Who knows? I mean, I couldn't have guessed what happened in the last 3 years. I don't think anybody else could. So, I think that's something for us to consider going into the budget process this coming year. So,
Great.
Any questions? If
All
not,
right.
Tom, thank you, Dana, and thank you, Dana's team. And then, the letter you had said about the pre-work for the audit, is that gotten to you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's good. I'm glad that you got that. So we'll address that as the next audit comes along and
I
it'll
think it's just a planning issue. Yep.
great.
Okay,
Excellent.
everyone. Good.
Thank you very much, Tom.
See you.
Very nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, for making that all go very smoothly.
I thought for sure you'll have the question, Martha, about the post benefits of the $66 million. Basically, when and he says that it's most districts. If the district was ceased to exist, the district has liabilities. The community would have liabilities, and that's what that number really reflects. Is like all of our retirees and all that are in terms of retirement and health benefits. Even though the district no longer exists, the community and the district as a whole has to continue paying for those benefits until the last person has basically used them up. So that's what that is, and again, it's an actuary formula that someone creates and builds, but you always look at that. That's always like, oh my goodness, we're negative, whatever.
Yeah.
It's gone up well, the deficit has gone up every year, but that's why.
I didn't ask about it because I figured if I got this far, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. There's nothing you do about it, right? That's what it is.
That's not a number you can really deal with.
Right. The state comes in and says like classes, district is no longer going to exist as a district.
So just as a matter of curiosity, then that would pass to whatever area was absorbed the district then?
I
or-
think what would happen is the community, our community would continue to have to fund that. So even though there's no longer a district, the, Wilmington and Lake Placid, the school district.
Prior
would-
tax base.
Yeah, would,
Assume
yeah, would have to
liabilities.
continue.
So it sounds like the best thing to do is to keep the school district healthy and going on in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad we're all in agreement there. Excellent. Okay, well, Dana, not to put you on the spot again, but budget performance report.
So I gave you three things this time, two that you've seen. One you've been seeing for a while, one I started, the spreadsheet I started last month and continued this month. So we'll start with the analytics version. And you can see that for the month of October, our revenue is down by 211,000 compared to last year. Our expenditures are up about $127,000 compared to last year. Or if you look at from the month of October from year end to year end, it's unfavorable. But you're looking at a 1 month look versus a 12-month look. Year to date, our revenue year to date, $424,000 less than last year. Our expenditures we've spent more, 25.5% more at this time than 23.2%. But we're still, in terms of project performance, in the good when it comes to expenditures. So in the end, we're still projecting a surplus. But I always say, I mean, we're talking October. We're still only a couple months into the year, but in the end, we look at it, we are still projecting well a couple months in on that. The other one, the spreadsheet, the charts, the table. What I started doing is kind of giving you an up-to-date as recent as possible. And I put this together yesterday, just so you can see more of a real-time look comparison versus looking back on the month. We're still trending higher this year than last year. Salaries, there's a difference, $124,000. Employee benefits, about $1.2 million. The only one that's really less at this point is equipment. That's because, and again, we look at, we did a lot of purchasing last year for computers and things like that, equipment that we just didn't have to do this year. That's really the difference. In the end, when we look at it, we're trending about $1.5 million more in expenditures currently as opposed to last year. And if you remember a month ago, it was about $993,000 that we were above. But I say that because then my next statement is going to be everything's about time. $776,000 of that is our TRS, our teachers' retirements. Last year, we didn't actually book it as an expense until February. We did that just a couple weeks ago. So when you look at that, $760,000 of that $1.5 million increase is because of when we booked it as an expense. It's really coming timing. So it's a nice snapshot and it's good to look at it, but in the end, you kind of keep looking at the trend and stuff like that. As I said last time, yes, we're going to be spending more because things have gone up. I mean, everything across the board, salaries, benefits, all of that, we're trending higher, but we're still in good position. As I jokingly said, but its truth is, as long as we're bringing in more revenue than we spend, we're good. I don't envision right now, by June, us having the surpluses that we've had in the last few years. So I think we're still going to have a surplus, but it's not going to be where we've been seeing it. 900,000 this year, 900 last year, 1.3 the year before. Things are coming into focus. Like I said, our debt services are going to are more concrete now, so we know exactly what we have to budget because we have the bond in place, and we can project that out for 15 years. So yes, we're not going to have the big surpluses. Questions on budget performance?
All right, treasurer.
Treasury reports. Look at, again, we are looking pretty good, in terms of our cash receipts, brought in about $4.6 million. Dispersed about $1.892 million, for the month of October. You can see at the very bottom, available cash balance is a little over $20 million. It's in terms of accounts, cash balance. That will trend downward as we go through because, we are a property tax rich school districts. Most of that money comes in September, October, and early November. When you look at it, nearly 17 million of our $20 million budget is in property taxes. Most of that has come in. So you're going to see a nice healthy cash balance right now because most of our revenue has already come in. Unlike other districts that rely more on state aid, it would be reverse because state aid really doesn't start to kick in until December, January, February. So they're in the reverse. They will show their, $3-4 million, and then they're waiting on their state revenue. We're fortunate enough that, we have it at the front end. So that will tick down as it normally does as we pay our bills and things like that. But as Tom said, we're sitting on about $5 million in an unassigned fund balance, $9 million total. I don't know if you caught that, in one of the pages, it showed the $1 million for the repair. So $1 million out of that 9 million is set aside for repair reserve, in addition to all of our other restricted reserve accounts. So when you look at the $4+ million above the unassigned fund balance, that's all restricted. That's all for specific things that we earmark in case of emergencies. We have a large settlements that we have to refund a big property, the taxes. We have a tax surcharge or unemployment or repair reserve. So those are restricted to those specific things. So when you look at it, almost half of what we have in terms of our fund balance, restricted, unrestricted, is restricted. But in the end, in terms of report, again, we're pretty good. Most of the is in our cash sweep, and one nice side about interest rates going up, that means our return will be a little higher with the money in cash sweep. So we'll start seeing a little uptick in our investments for where our money is put. Great. Questions on the treasury report?
The big check, is that BOCES?
Yep.
Okay. Feel like I almost asked that.
Yeah, but it's
Just double check.
that's a good question. A couple of years ago, it would have been, well, it's capital project. It could be Luck Brothers, it could be
Right.
Bass Hatfield, but no, it's BOCES. We don't make any other big payments like that this time of year.
Google, we got one that's for 70, almost 70,000. 69,868.
Let's see here. Got BSN scores. Oh, yeah. That's St. Agnes School.
Okay.
That's for our UPK. So that's they bill us quarterly for that. So that's what that $69,000 is.
All right. Anyone else have questions for Dan? Great. Thank you very much, Dan. Okay, that brings us to Tim.
So lots to report as usual at the district level and 2 instructional facilities. I'm going to start with an instructional lens. So as you may recall, over the summer, we transitioned our instructional teams into departments that bridge the gap between the 2 buildings. So we recognized that we were looking for greater coherence from our K-5 and 6-12 instructional teams. And in the process of that, we appointed 14 department leaders. And since the summer training all the way until today, the departments under the leadership of these department leaders have been focusing on an instructional challenge that they as a team identify. And the goal for trying to identify that instructional challenge is how to address deficits in engagement in the classroom. the manner in which students are paying attention, the degree to which they are retaining content and being involved in their learning. And once they identify that challenge, then the teams have been empowered to research together tools and resources that they would like to implement as an engagement strategy to put in place for the year, to measure with fidelity, and at the end of the year to share their findings with their colleagues. So to some degree, it's kind of the scientific method that you're looking at an area that you think you'd like to see growth in with the students. You have a hypothesis about what you could implement to try and improve upon what you're seeing. You collect data, and then you measure it to determine the success of the strategy. So I thought I would take a moment and just share some of the instructional challenges that these teams have put together and the engagement strategies that they put forth. Because it's for me to see this all start to come together is just pretty exciting to see our teacher leaders leading their teams in this manner, and just getting a sense of what we're going to hear the results of at the end of the year from these team leaders. So at the high school and middle school level, the science department is looking at ways to engage students with content that is more relevant to the real world. So in the science curriculum. And so some of the strategies they're doing is consistently across the board, looking to increase the manner that they use current events in the classroom, participating in peer-to-peer discussions and classroom discussions, and doing pre and post assessments with students around those current events to make the learning that they're happening in the science classroom feel more relevant to today's events. At the English level in the middle high school, the department members have noticed that some students are struggling with elaborating in their written responses. So they'll answer the question, but not to the extent that they would like to see. And so they're working on explicit instructions and rubrics and exemplars for students during the writing process that will give them some insight into how to add more into their writing. At the K-5 level, they're looking in the English department at ways to increase student engagement in how you address an academic prompt in response to something that you've read. And so the strategy they're going to do is to assign academic prompts to the students 3 times a week, and to measure the success of those in grades 3 through 5, and 2 times a week in K-2.
What's an academic prompt?
That's a good question. So it's essentially, if you were to read, let's say nonfiction, right? If you were to read maybe some information about how you would fix a lawnmower or something like that, then at the end of that, you would be faced with an academic prompt. It's a question basically where you would show that you understood what you read in the nonfiction prompt. So the notion behind that is that basically writing is a muscle, and the more that you do it, the more fluidly you can retain that information and display that. So that's what they're going to be measuring at the English level. At math, the K-5 team at the elementary, they are working on fact fluency for students, working on those core baseline skills that are needed for the higher level application that you see in algebra and geometry, trigonometry, calculus. And in 6 through 12, the math team is looking at finding ways to ensure that students are placed properly in the coursework that they have, so that they are engaged at the level that they've tested into, so that the content they're getting it has them on pace to continue through the curriculum. One of the challenges about math in particular is that math is a series of building blocks, and unlike reading, which can happen at home to varying degrees with support from the parents, math is becoming more and more reliant on the classroom. And so with the elementary team working on those building blocks in fact fluency, and the math middle high school team looking at honing in on the data to determine where students are in on their tests so that we can place them in the correct courses. The hope is that we continue to engage students throughout, and that content that students are not prepared for isn't being delivered to them, but also that for students who are excelling in the content, that they're not being held back by being placed incorrectly in class. So I think there's a ton of research in that team is starting, and I'm pleased to see that. Both the mental health, which is a K through 12 team, and the social studies K through 5 team are focusing on ways to engage students who through social emotional learning in the classroom. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's any crossover between those two departments. Social studies at the middle high school level, that department is looking at increasing student engagement through the use of historical documents. Maintaining greater access and showing students some of the common ways that language and graphics are used, and graphic organizers can be used so that they can approach a historical document that they encounter in a way where they can kind of decipher what the historical document is trying to get across. Our special education department for 6 through 12, they're looking at how students often struggle with initiating and completing a task. And so they're focusing on maintaining some practices to build upon the relationships that our teachers have with students, so that when students are met with frustration during the learning process, that they stay the course, they have that resilience so that they can see a task through to completion. In the PE and health department, they are trying to address some differences in enthusiasm that student might have in participating in their classes. And one of the things they're doing is providing some strategies to give students more choice in what they're doing for a unit in those classes. So they're also going to be able to have a say in how they do their warm-ups and things like that, just giving them a little bit more student voice. Our library and technology department is working on generating, I think that the issue they're seeing is that we have so many programs that our students can avail themselves to in the library and technology realm. And in many cases, the awareness isn't there for the students about what those programs are. So they are designing some menus that students can, some drop-down menus that students can get and familiarize themselves with all the software that they can use to help them in their learning process. In world language, this is a K through 12 department. They're focusing on teacher pacing and making sure that students are adjusting and learning the high frequency words they need for language retention. So the strategy they're looking at is specific practices about word walls, so you're putting those key vocabulary practices up on the wall, and you're using the same process in K through 12 to familiarize the students with how you decipher words in a foreign language. And then in the art, tech, and music department, they're looking at ways to increase student engagement by offering students different choices to model the skills and taking ownership in their learning. So great teacher leadership across the board. We're early in this process. It's really only hit the district writ large September and October, and already our teams are doing really well with this work. So I'm very proud of the staff and the department leaders for taking this and really running with it. In terms of what's going on with our students, at the elementary school, we've had quite a bit of activity tonight. The Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are utilizing our facilities for meetings. We also are seeing an uptick in community usage of our facilities, which is one of our tenets of community schools, to have more organizations coming into our schools to use our facilities. Pickleball has just resumed at the Lake Placid Elementary School, which meets weekly. We have men's league basketball that's going to be starting at the middle high school. So continuing ways to increase community access to our facilities. At the elementary school, parent-teacher conferences are being scheduled. Letters went home to families requesting appointments last week. We did have a half day on Friday of last week. During that half day, our departments did meet and continue to move the ball forward on the challenges that they're seeing and the strategies they want to put in place. But at a district-wide training also occurred, led by Mrs. Franklin and Ms. Lindsay. And it was the ALICE training, which stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. We also included our substitutes in this training. And essentially, it's about readiness and understanding what you do in the event of a security concern in our facilities. So we've made lots of inroads with our infrastructure, with cameras and door swipes and locks and other mechanisms to keep our students safe. And the ALICE training is another cog in that wheel to ensure that in a situation where we need to have heightened vigilance, that our staff are trained in how to respond to those situations. And Tuesday of next week, we have our emergency evacuation drill, which will be taking place around 11 o'clock in both of our facilities, as yet another means to prepare our students and staff if we ever need to evacuate either of our buildings. We had the American Red Cross coming into 2nd and 3rd grade to present the pillowcase project. They'll be coming in tomorrow, so we're excited for them. We have on the 16th of November at the elementary school, Maddie Fanu from the Olympic Training Center will be giving 2 presentations on biathlon to our students, one for our K through 2 students and one through 3 through 5. And the 4-H program is visiting 2nd grade classrooms as part of the Agriculture in the Classroom series. And that will take place tomorrow. So thank you to those community partners for engaging with our students. At the middle high school, we had the Sweethearts and Heroes program come and provide circle training, a restorative practice training for our teachers. We also invited staff from BOCES, and 4 of them attended. And restorative practices is essentially that when there is a fracture in a relationship, be them between students or between a student and a staff member, restoring that relationship is as important, if not more important, than also addressing the circumstances that led to the fracture in the relationship. And so these are specific strategies that can be used to try and repair the damage that may happen when negative interactions occur between students. So it was a very well regarded training. We're looking at March 19th to the 22nd as the prospective dates for the final DC trip. So we had 2 student groups that were backlogged due to COVID that were not allowed to go on the 8th grade trip. So we were able to take our current 8th grade class and this year's 9th graders in October. And by taking the 10th graders in March, we will get back on course. So we're excited to see that happen. Just an anecdote that Miss Lindsay told me about that I wanted to share. She received a call from a doctor who was visiting Lake Placid from Western New York on vacation. And on her vacation, she walked around the lake 3 days in a row. She had a little black dog. And each of the 3 days, our cross-country students were training around the lake and greeted her very politely and gave, spent some time with the dog and told her a little about the community. And she was just so impressed at the gregariousness and kindness of our students that she just wanted to take the time to call and thank the school and community for the job that we're doing with the kids. So I thought that was a nice anecdote.
They're all hopped up on dopamine.
That's right. They had carved up, they were ready to go. I caught them there once too. I know Coach Frazier had them doing some sort of training where they used poker cards, and depending on what they picked, they had to do like squat thrusts or something. I felt terrible for them. We're also scheduling parent-teacher conferences for next Monday as well at the middle high school, and Amanda Cash has been doing a great job scheduling those those will take place in coming days. This is a note from both offices that I was asked to explicitly share with the board. The increase in subpay has helped tremendously. The mornings are so much less stressful. The need to piece together teachers and staff coverage has diminished greatly. Thank you for approving the increase. It has helped tremendously. Even today, I remarked to Karen, we had X number of staff out. We had X number of subs in. The math was clean. Tom Telling would have been proud. So, so in the end, and it's palpable. You can go in the office and people aren't trying to scramble period to period to period. So thank you for that support. I know the staff appreciate it. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock, National Honor Society will induct 11 students. Any board members interested in attending the ceremony, it'll be at the Middle High School auditorium. This is a great way to acknowledge the service and academic success of our students. So students who are inducted into the National Honor Society have a minimum cumulative GPA of 85. They also have 25 hours of service that they provide for the community, and they have various leadership characteristics that are emblematic of what National Honor Society stands for. So that is tomorrow evening. And that is my report.
Thank you. Just to add on, I think, I know from the cross country, girls placed 8th in the state.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Athletics. I didn't even bring up athletics.
All right.
How did I skip that one? Banner win.
Andrew Scanio finished 10th.
The team you're talking about.
The girls team, cross country, finished 8th. Andrew Scanio finished 10th overall. Lily Rother also finished 10th overall. And Aiden Faye finished 29th, I believe. And so both Lily and Andrew will be going to federations. So they qualify for that. So again, a tremendous job done by our coaches, and that program did really well. So.
And
Kudos to
Andrew
them.
also did remarkably well in the performance.
Right, and then he just popped over and decided to be the lead in the play too, so, you know.
That was a similar timeline with Little Mermaid and Nordic Championships last year.
Yeah, it seems to be the magic recipe that he needs to rise to the occasion. So
We'll plan something.
thank you to Coach Frazier and Coach Haley, for Mandy, and the teams. They did a great job this season. So.
And Section 7 volleyball champions, like Blasted Blue Bombers,
Yeah.
did tremendously well, had their most successful season in memory. So congrats to Coach Sandy Huber and the girls for their work on that as well.
I think that our sports programs continue to punch above their weight, so that's good to see. All right, information on the board. For the board, we have the extracurricular account there, and also some executive content about the school law book. I will definitely take that online version because I do not need another.
Do you want online?
Yeah, I'll take that on. Because that thing takes up some real estate on the bookshelf. Save at least 3 trees per book.
Joni?
I would do the online.
Ellen?
I'll do online also.
Wow.
All right.
Saving like 12 trees now.
Oh, digital.
And Martha, you too?
Just the boosters.
It was nice to prop the door open in the summer. You know.
Can't wait to it.
Oh, no, I have my book. I should have brought it in. I have tabs on it. I open it all the time.
Well, I have a couple of things. But
Yeah.
Overall, I could definitely use it digital. Is any of this other stuff? Well, read about the board committees. Be thinking about that. And do we need to make a decision on that December 20th board meeting?
Just
now?
putting it on your radar that we're on pace to be on pace, as it were, and that the 20th might be an opportunity to shed that if the board's comfortable with that at the next meeting.
Okay. You'll see some stuff in there about this sort of purchase. So read up on all of that. 4A was in the consent agenda, as was 5A and 5B and 5C. all those. So, and thank you to our volunteers and winter coaches that provide such excellent programming for our kids. And also congratulations to those. I mean, I've seen a couple of the kids that they produce with some high quality kids, so another week makes sense. Another week. I saw Miss McCombie's kid. It's a cute kid, so
Love it.
good job. So that's right. I'm all about that enrollment, whatever it takes. 6A is right there. So next thing, which we pulled out of consent agenda. So the recommended action be it resolved, the Board of Education, the Lake Placid Central School District hereby accepts the minutes. Oops. There we go. It didn't switch from where I was before. Let me restart that again. Recommended action, whereas Telling and Associates have prepared the financial report for the Lake Placid Central School District for the year ended June 30th, 2022. Whereas Mr. Tom Telling presented the financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2022 to the Board of Education on November 15th, 2022. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the financial report for the year ended 2022 by Telling and Associates. Do I have a motion? Yes. Thank you, Dan. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Questions?
Just compliments to the business office. Another great job.
They're easy to work with.
It seems unusual that the auditor would compliment so graciously as he did, so that's a great compliment.
They make it easy.
And I will say too, that like the board and administration relationship is one that's built on trust. And it's nice to have that trust affirmed, that yes, indeed, you and your team is trustworthy, and we thank you for your diligent work and attention to detail. Makes the rest of this work pretty easily when we're not having to deal with, financial mucky muck. That's a technical term. All right, so that takes, is everybody, sorry,
5 yes.
5 yes. 6B was in the consent agenda. That takes us to the next for the good of the cause.
I have not received anything.
Nothing. Doug, you got anything? Good. Doug, you weren't here, but we added that section in the first for the good of the cause, information for the public, where when things are brought up, we can provide information and answer to that, or in addition. So if you look at that and the agenda, you'll see some of your comments about civics. So some references there. So
I noticed that. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So linking goals with agenda items.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any that they'd like to throw out there?
Superintendent's report. And, students first and foremost, sure.
Find those financial ones, those are the low hanging fruit after this stuff.
Right. I know. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
So I was looking for it too.
Well, the financial one, I'll just say that. And the
All
audit
the
report,
finance.
all the financial,
Money stuff going good.
money stuff, good.
That's right.
We'll attach that to all those things. Figure out, I'm worried that if I try to go find the list of goals, I'm gonna sign myself out of the meeting again.
Oops.
Okay. Well, if you have any, please pass them on, Karen. All right. We should copy and paste just the headers of the goals
Where?
into that linking goals and agenda items.
Okay.
So I'll sign myself out again.
Okay.
As long as that's not too hard. Is that something we can like make sure that
Very easy.
when the plan comes together? Okay, let's enter the adjournment phase of the meeting. The next meeting dates and locations, you'll see there December 6th, December 20th, January 3rd, those will all be here. It's the boardroom. We'll see about the December 20th meeting and whether or not it's necessary. I guess we'll decide that. December 6th. Sounds about right. And unbelievably, that takes us into 2023. So if we
That's
can all
crazy.
grasp that. I still feel like we're in 2020, but any old agenda topics? Any new agenda topics? Right, so that is, we enter the adjournment phase of the meeting. Recommended action, motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:26 PM. Do I have a motion?
Yep.
Thank you, Martha. Do I have a
I'll second.
second? Second, Joan. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well done.
All in favor, aye.
Bye.
So, quick question, December 6th, we're at 6:30 again?
Is that, we're still at 6:30, right? Did we decide on? Did we decide?
Did we decide? to get
I know,
back to
that's why I
thought
put
you-
times
I
up
thought you
there.
said six,
It's
yeah,
just
you said-
6:30. Are you having that meeting?
Not on that day.
Okay, so we'll move to 6.